Here we are, back, Fifth Down Newsletter, week 9 of the NFL season. I'm joined this week by the other co-founder of Fifth Down, NFL Mike. We got 5 downs for you. I mean, we're on the cusp of trade season. We're not talking about trades in this show, but Deontay Johnson, a guy that we were both hoping to end up on the Chargers, ends up on the Ravens and crushes. Mike, did that one hit? Yeah, I see the teardrop a little bit, right?
I mean, it's not my number one trade target, Tony, so I'm just hoping that this is just meaning that my number one target is happening. You know, I've seen the Chargers connected to all these different players. They got to be trying, right? So they got to go out and get somebody. I'm looking at the bright side here. Deontay's out. DeAndre Hopkins is out. Like, these guys are getting knocked off the list, which means my number one trade target is more higher probability that that's the guy we're trying to get.
Yeah, and it seemed a lot like they were in the sweepstakes for Deontay Johnson. They just missed out. Like, for whatever reason, he went to the Ravens instead of whatever the Chargers offered. We'll talk about trades next week when this stuff is finalized. Let's get into first down. First down this week is NFL MVPs at the midway point. I'm going to go ahead and rattle off mine. Michael will rebuttal to his. All right, as follows. I'm going to start at number 5. My number 5 is Jaden Daniels. The guy's on pace to have, 20 or, 4,500 all-purpose yards and, 25 to 30 all-purpose touchdowns. And the team is 6-2. Like, I just had to put him in there. Number 4, thinking out of the box. I know that this guy will never be an MVP, but my number 4 pick, Chris Jones. The team's 7-0. They're winning by defense or / TJ Watt. Both of these guys are playing incredible high-level defense for their teams, and I always love to have a defensive guy on there, and either one of them is worthy. So Chris Jones, TJ Watt, number 4. Number 3,
dreaming.
Saquon Barkley. Like, this guy has injected life into the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's been absolutely fantastic to watch as long as you are not another fan of the NFC East or you are John Mara, the owner of the New York Giants. Number 2, let's stay with running backs. Derrick Henry has been sensational this year. The first 2 weeks of the season, Baltimore struggling. Then all of a sudden, Henry goes off. The guy's on pace for another 2K season. Would be the only running back in history to do that. I can see, if you want to say Lamar's also MVP again, yeah, I get it. He could have easily been here, but he's not. Number 1, Jared Goff. The dude is balling. Like, I know that he only threw for whatever it was, like 58 yards, 85 yards, whatever the number was last week. Still had 3 touchdowns. The team put up 52 points. Jared Goff is balling out of control. Those are my 5 MVPs at the midway point. Mike, what do you got?
I've got a top 3 for you, Tony, but my top 5 extends very similarly to you. One guy I'll shout out is CJ Stroud. I think what he's doing through injuries, if he continues to put up these stats and continues to keep pace with some of the leaders as far as touchdowns go, CJ Stroud is going to be in this conversation come down the stretch of the season when we take into account he lost Nico Collins, he lost Stephon Diggs, he lost Joe Mixon for a period of time and still was there. And then, of course, Jaden Daniels will probably be at the edge of my top 5 also. My top 3, I have Goff at 3. And it's not because of the stats. I think Goff's stats are probably the best amongst all available MVP candidates, but the similar effect to like with Brock Purdy. Yes, Jared Goff is balling out. He's getting this ball around to these weapons. He's also in an absolutely loaded situation where maybe the team is propping him up a little bit. I don't think it's the same in Josh Allen's situation, who I have as my second in the MVP right now. I think Josh Allen is carrying the Buffalo Bills, him and James Cook, but mostly 17, especially James Cook dealing with some injuries now. And then to keep it short, to keep it sweet, we got to get a non-quarterback MVP this year. I want to see it. It's going to be Derrick Henry. This is my pick to win MVP as of today because there's no signs, there's no reason other than injury to think that this is going to slow down, because the way they slow this down is by letting Lamar Jackson loose, which no team wants to do. So I think he is going to push for that 2,000-yard season. I think more importantly, Derrick Henry has 11 all-purpose touchdowns, similar to Josh Allen, similar to Jared Goff, to Lamar, to CJ Stroud. If he goes out with 22, 24 touchdowns and 2,000 yards, we're talking about him putting up quarterback numbers when he gets the ball 15, 20, 25 times, however many times they continue to feed Derrick Henry a game, is a lot less than a quarterback touches the ball. Derrick Henry for MVP this year, baby. And I think he's underrated as a pass blocker, too. He's been in on passing downs a lot more than I expect him to be.
He's the size of a left tackle. He should be
True.
good in pass pro.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of guards in this league where he's like, hey, you need to eat up, son. You're looking a little light in the pants. So I love that list. I would love to see Derrick Henry win MVP. It's always fun when it's a non-quarterback situation there. So we were just talking about the heights in first down. Second down, we're going to the other end of the spectrum. And we're talking about Bryce Young. So I want to preface this segment with this. I think that all three of these quarterbacks are in somewhat of a sophomore slump. I know that Mike gave a shout out to CJ Stroud in the last segment, but like he is struggling a little bit more the way they're playing him. And I do think some of the stuff is due to injuries there, but we see Anthony Richardson, what he's going through, the struggles are there. I wanted to talk about the optimistic side for Bryce Young. I watched the whole game. Was it great? Like, was it number one overall pick quality of play? No, it wasn't. But was it much better than what we saw in the first 2 weeks of the season? Is there a point where you're watching Bryce Young, and if you had high grades on him, right? If you're Mike McDaniel and you're saying, hey, we need a backup QB down here, somebody who's, reliable, smart, quick decisions, could we have him down here? Like, if you're Sean McVay, we're getting to the end of Matthew Stafford here. Could I bring him out here and see what he did in my system? And if you're the Panthers, it's like there's 3 years left on the contract. If you wanted to move him, we saw Trey Lance get moved for like a 4th-round pick because there were multiple years left on the deal. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a situation now. I know the Cowboys, in a lot of people's estimation, overpaid, but maybe there's a situation where the Panthers could still recoup something if he can continue to play at this level or better. Because in that game, there was a couple of bad drops from Xavier Legette in the game that could have maybe changed things a little bit, made the game look better for Bryce Young. But I think if I'm a Panthers fan, it was optimistic compared to what we saw the first 2 weeks, Mike. Like, he looked like he couldn't even play. And he made it through 4 quarters, put up a bunch of yards, scored some touchdowns. I'm not abandoning Bryce Young yet. What do you say?
I mean, I don't think it's a maybe. Does he have trade value? It's a guarantee that he has value right now to those teams. I mean, you look at what the Bucs have done with Baker Mayfield. This dude, before the injuries to the receivers, he might have been in this MVP conversation. Sam Darnold, what's going on there? Like, what the hell? All it took was some good coaching and some amazing weapons, and now Sam Darnold looks like he should have been picked where he was drafted multiple teams ago. We're not even talking one team ago. Sean McVay definitely believes in his coaching abilities to turn Bryce Young's career around to a point, maybe even that if he shows enough promise, he'd want to hold on to him like he wanted to hold on to Baker Mayfield for post-Matthew Stafford. I think that it is not even a maybe. For certain, Bryce Young has trade value for the Panthers right now. They should trade him if they're going to move on and get something, like you're saying, recoup something out of the first overall pick from just a year ago. It wasn't even that long ago. I'll even go one step further when we talk about Bryce Young's stock being up. I'm working on a deal in the background. It's not secured yet, so I won't say their name, on the sports stock market. And Bryce Young this week up 21% on the sports stock market. Literally, his stock is up, Tony.
He is. Like, you cannot tell me that you can just give up on quarterbacks this fast, right? It's the same thing with Anthony Richardson in this situation. I do think that he needs a little more time, right? He needs to be – the team can win with Joe Flacco. Like, that game last week was for first place in the division, and I believe that if Joe Flacco started, the Colts had a legitimate shot to win that game. And so it's like, I think the Colts should move forward with Joe Flacco in the time being, and as long as they're winning, go with Flacco this year. It does not mean you're abandoning Anthony Richardson and the work you're going to put in. I don't necessarily think the Panthers should abandon him. But if they are thinking about it, if they're saying, we've got the number 1 pick, let's move Bryce Young, well, there's value here. We just saw that this guy can play in the NFL against a pretty good defense. And it didn't look great. Don't get me misquoted here.
We got blessed and cursed Tony, with the last generation of quarterbacks. They took over the league for 20 years, but they made everyone forget how hard it is to play quarterback and how you can't just walk in and do it day one. And we all didn't realize how spoiled we were when we had freaking 15 amazing franchise quarterbacks in the league at once.
Yeah. At some point, you have to have a conversation, and maybe this could have been a topic on this show, but like you owe it to your team that if you have a top 15 quarterback, which Joe Flacco is sitting on the bench, like if you looked around the league right now and you were like, where's Joe Flacco? Somewhere in the top 15, and he's sitting on your bench, you have to play him. Like, even if you have the investment in Anthony Richardson, so like he's got to be out there. I mean, I pitched something behind the scenes real quick. I pitched an idea to Mike that to have a controversial video, a topic that said, did the Baltimore Ravens hold Joe Flacco back from an MVP career? Because Joe Flacco has gotten with Kevin Stefanski and Shane Steichen, and this dude looks like he could have thrown for like 70,000 yards in this league and been putting up like 40 TDs a year. Like Joe Flacco, it's crazy what this guy's done with offensive coaching in the last 2 years.
Oh boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
that
boy.
video would have been filled with hate in the comments. I can already hear people being like,
You're talking about him. You're talking about never going to Lamar, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying like Joe Flacco went to Baltimore and had a great career, right?
Yeah.
Like he had a very great career, wins a Super Bowl, makes a bunch of money. But imagine if Joe Flacco would have ended up like his whole career with an offensive guy. Like imagine if he was with Kyle Shanahan for his whole career, or Sean McVay or whatever. He's showing that he can wheel and deal. We'll get to more on Joe Flacco when we get to the bet segment. But first, in third down, teams that I think that could be selling based on the fact that they have a franchise quarterback. Now, you can say whatever you want about these teams, whether you believe the quarterbacks are franchise or not. I'm saying based on what they're paying them, these are franchise quarterbacks. We have the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Cincinnati Bengals, all in tough spots. Technically could still make the playoffs, all of them. I don't think most people are picking any of these teams to make the playoffs based on the starts that they've had. But they all have players on the team that I think that they could move and get some picks for next year. Like being able to like restart some of the process of not rebuilding, but retooling around what you already have in place, which is a very expensive roster because of what you have dedicated salaries to the quarterbacks, and just some of the players like the Dolphins, like Tyreek Hill's a little bit older. Is somebody willing to take on that salary and send you something in return? Jalen Ramsey,
I think so.
Jags, Evan Ingram, maybe somebody calls the Jags and says, hey, how invested are you guys in Walker, your first overall pick? We'll send you a number 2. We'll send you a second round pick right now for him. I mean, that might be worth it. They might, got to get the Jags just trade away an offensive lineman. Offensive linemen never get traded. The Bengals, Higgins, Hendrickson, move these guys right now because you might get comp picks for them in the future. But if you trade them right now, you could probably get picks for the 2025 draft instead of waiting around to see what sort of comp picks you get in 2026. I would move those two guys right now because I think you could get something back for them. What do you think about this idea?
I'm with you. No, I'm with you. And I think that for those 3 teams that you mentioned specifically, they're in a unique spot where it can be turned around in one off season, and maximizing your draft capital now for players that may not be on the team next year anyways would probably be a wise move. I also think at the trade deadline, especially this trade deadline, you have a rare opportunity where teams view it as kind of being wide open. Yeah, the Chiefs are undefeated, but if you're honest with context in football, I always bring it up. No one's willing to put context on football. They just want to look at the stat line or look at the record. The context is that it's wide open this year. So there's some teams that I think might overpay at the trade deadline when typically you're looking for discounts at the trade deadline.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think we're getting a type of GM that's a little bit more aggressive, and maybe we can see. I mean, we saw like 3 guys that are really good to Hall of Fame wide receivers get moved weeks before the deadline was even there. And it's still possible that some other guys could be on their way out. Let's go to fourth down. Last week, I went 3-2 in this segment where I'm Tony's picks against the spread. And the only reason I didn't go 5-0 is because of a Hail Mary against the Bears and because Dak Prescott can't get his stuff together against the 49ers. Plus 5.5, they lose by 6. So I go 3-2. This week, I got another 5. So on the season, I am 14-11. Starting off, I got the Bills minus 6.5 at home against the Dolphins. I'm sorry, but when the Dolphins were right and healthy at the beginning of the year, it was a slaughter fest in Miami. I think in Buffalo this weekend, again, I like the Bills to win by a touchdown. New England Patriots plus 2.5. We're testing out the Lions theory this week, Mike, because the Tennessee Titans just had to go play the Titans.
Play the Lions.
Patriots are getting 2.5 points. I'm going to go ahead and take that. The Commanders minus 2.5 going to New York. I think they can win by a field goal. This isn't like, I don't think they're going to blow out the Giants. The Giants are a good defensive team. I just think the Commanders can win by 2.5. I like the Rams in a pick'em in Seattle. They're only plus 5, but I'll take, you got Cooper Kupp and Nakua, Kyron Williams. Like everything's starting to get back together there. I'll take them all they got to do is win the game. And I cashed that one. And finally, Joe Flacco. So I picked this game plus 5.5 when they were unsure about who was going to start. Now that Joe Flacco's starting against Minnesota, it's plus 5.5. I'm going to pick Minnesota to win the game, but I like the Colts to cover the 5.5. Joe Flacco, veteran, experienced quarterback against the Flores blitz. It's right there. I'll go over those once again real quick just so I can edit this into a nice little post for our social media. I like the Bills minus 6.5, the Patriots plus 2.5, the Commanders minus 2.5, the Rams pick them, Colts plus 5.5. Those are my 5 this week. What do you think, Mike? Which one of those do you like?
I think number 1 will be the one I also had. So I put together 3. I wasn't sure how many I was supposed to put together here. So maybe we can start keeping a record for me too. But I had the Bills covering as well as my number 1 pick on my list. For the same reason you're saying, like it almost feels like the Bills always have the Dolphins number. And with everything that's going on, Tua just getting back into the flow of things, like it's 6.5 points conveniently for them to win by 7 or more. I'm here for it. If it was 7, I'd be a little bit more worried. Maybe they land on that number exactly. My second one is, and I don't know why this one isn't on your list, the Chargers are blowing the Browns out this weekend. 2-point spread? You freaking kidding me? Versus Jameis Winston? Better start praying, buddy. And then my third one, I think the Rams are going to win comfortably as well over the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. I think the Rams are really going to catch their stride in this game offensively with both receivers out there. They're only up 2, I think. I think the Rams minus 2 over Seattle. So on the road, I think the Rams win by a field goal plus easily. I got the Rams win by 10 points in that one. So my 3 were Bills covering the 6.5, Chargers covering the 2, and the Rams covering the 2. So that's my 3.
I love it. Maybe we can turn this into a Bet US. Is that the place you're with? Is that what it is?
Yeah, if they sponsor Fifth Down, we'll turn it into a Bet US.
You can cut it out. And
no free ads. No free ads.
Yeah, who cares? So I will say the only reason that I didn't pick the Chargers, Mike, is the line is getting higher. I think it started off at like the -1 for the Chargers, then went to 1.5, and now it's at 2. So it is becoming increasingly a bigger favorite there. I just think the Browns are a really good team. I'm not chalking this up as a win at all. Jameis Winston is a guy. I'm still picking the Chargers. I still believe in them. I just don't like to bet on my team unless I feel like it's a for sure thing.
3 picks, Tony. Winston will throw 3 picks this weekend.
He should have thrown like 7 picks last week. Kyle Hamilton is having nightmares about that ball that he dropped to win the game last week with like 1 minute and 4 seconds left. Let's go to fifth down. The final down here, the extra down, fifth down. Just want to remind you guys, please consider subscribing to the channel. Go on over to fifthdown.shop and check out all of the cool designs that we have, the swag, so you can be extra on game day, just like we are. The game of the week, I'm 3-0 on picking these babies right here. And this week, it is the Lions and the Packers. And a lot of people might say, well, what if Malik Willis starts? Malik Willis is 2-0, and Malik Willis came in relief duty last week and was great. So I still think that this is a game to watch, a game to see. I'm excited, so excited for this football game. On the Lions side, it's like they can take a really commanding lead with wins over the Vikings, wins over the Packers, moving to 7-1. And then the other thing is there going to be weather? Look, so I'm kind of a nerd. I looked it up. There's like a 63% chance of rain in this game. The whole knock is that Jared Goff isn't great in the rain. I think that that's just another myth that the Lions want to destroy, right? It's all this like, since Dan Campbell's got there, they're beating down all of the bad narratives about them. And I think this is the next one that they get. I like the Lions to go into Lambeau this week and win by at least 3 points. I'm saying this game is somewhere in the neighborhood of 31-27-ish in that. I almost had the Packers plus 4.5. I didn't put that in my bets this week, but I like the Lions to win this game. I still think this is a great chance for the Packers defense to show up and say, we've really arrived. What do you think about the game of the week?
I definitely think this is the game of the week for sure. I also agree with you. I think that the Lions are going to put that to bed a little bit. I'm not going to call for a crazy Jared Goff game in this one, but I think at very minimum, their rushing attack is at another level of dominant this year. Like, we've seen it be really good in years past. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has come into his own here into his second season. And of course, Monty's going to consistently be what he is. And of course, the Lions defense taking the leap. We haven't really seen them get a big test yet, other than the Vikings, and they gave up 30 points. So then, since losing Aiden Hutchinson, so we'll see if the rushing defense specifically against Josh Jacobs and the Packers rushing attack in the weather, if there's weather, is at the same level. If it is, everything looks good, especially with this Jameis Winston. I got Winston on the brain. Jameson Williams suspension. I think the Lions are going to be very aggressive at the trade deadline, and I think they're going to win this game, and I'll go one step further, Tony, and I might be jinxing the crap out of them right now. I don't think the Lions lose another regular season game.
I would. That would be incredible. I have so many family and friends from Michigan, right? You know, Uper here. They would love that. It would be a very exciting time for them to go 16-1 on their way to the Super Bowl. That'd be awesome. It's going to wrap it up. Go ahead, get in the comments. Let us know what you think about the bets, the picks, the trades, the craziness. We try to keep it positive on this show, so do the same in the comments there. Like we said, if you are interested in being a little bit extra like we are on game day, going all out for your boys, for your team, for your squad, check out fifthdown.shop right there. Mike, is there anything you want to say before we close out this show?
No, appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you guys like the video.
There it is. Always cleaning it up. Clean it